Welcome to the Startup to Exit podcast, where we will bring you world-class entrepreneurs and VCs to share their hard-earned success stories and secrets. This podcast has been brought to you by TIE Seattle. TIE is a global nonprofit that focuses on fostering entrepreneurship. TIE Seattle offers a range of programs, including the Go Vertical Startup Creation Weekend, TIE Entrepreneur Institute, and the TIE Seattle Angel Network. We encourage you to become a TIE member so you can gain access to these great programs. To become a member, please visit www.seattle.tie.org.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of From Startup to Exit. We have a fantastic guest today, and once he starts speaking, we will learn how governments interact with artificial intelligence and what they do to encourage startups. It's going to be a fun episode. I, along with Shirish, are part of the TIE Seattle board. TIE Seattle produces this podcast. Shirish and I have been co-hosting for almost a year. We talk to very interesting folks who will add value to our audience, and I'm sure this episode will be the same. Shirish is a serial entrepreneur and a serial author. Both his books are now sold wherever books are sold. Hopefully you will buy and read them. The first book was titled From Startup to Exit, from which we borrowed the title for this podcast. And the second one, Winner Takes All, is about a marketplace. With that said, I'll hand it over to Shirish to introduce our guest and take it away. Shirish.
Thank you, Gauri. Welcome, everyone. Like to welcome Josh Fleig. I hope I'm pronouncing your name okay.
That works.
Okay. So Josh is the Chief Innovation Officer at the State of Louisiana. So welcome, Josh.
I thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here today. I'm a long-time listener, first-time guest.
Okay, very good. Very good. So you heard our podcast before. That's wonderful. So before we get started, it'd be great if you could talk a little bit about your background and journey and how you ended up in your current role.
Yeah, absolutely. So I don't know how long this podcast is, so please, guys, tell me to speed up my long story if it gets too long and boring. But I actually started my career as a high school fine arts teacher, and I was at a very interesting school. This was early aughts. This was 2002. I was at a very interesting high school in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. That received a large endowment from a private equity firm out of Dallas called LJ7 Fund. Seven Rosen Funds. LJ7 was the seven of seven Rosen Funds. So LJ7 was some of the original money, and Seven Rosen Funds was some of the original money behind compact computers. So he was an alumni of the brother school. His wife went to the sister school where I taught, and I was the only one of the few people on campus who was just kind of a gearhead, just like technology. And this gentleman with Seven Rosen Funds came, put a lot of money into the school, and said, "I want you guys to be the first one-to-one laptop school in the state of Louisiana." So we said, "Great." We built out a wireless mesh network across this 14-acre campus. 1,000 compact PCs. We actually created a student-run help desk where we were receiving warranty dollars for fixing the compact computers, which allowed us to kind of pay the students to do the work and also learn how to work on hardware. And so it was an amazing program. We were years ahead of the rest of the region in this space, and we just had dollars to try interesting stuff. And so I got really interested into digital media. I built out this multimedia program for the school, but after a couple of years, I knew that I didn't know what I was doing. I was home brewing everything, and so I left education to go to graduate school in New York. I went to NYU, and the Tisch School of the Arts within NYU is an interaction design program, which is really it's a lot of artist and computer science kind of mashed together, trying to figure out more novel ways to to build some kind of human computer interactions. And so in that program, I got introduced to the Nokia N95 smartphone, and this was like the coolest phone in the world at the time. And we were building these on deck applications. We were working with an open source server program called Asterisk at the time that allowed you to script SMS interactions, things like that. But this is pre-iPhone, so the greatest latest was were these Nokia feature phones, and I got really interested in mobile interaction. Took a job with NBC Universal right there in New York at the time, in an interactive media product development group, right at the end of my time in graduate school. And we were baking all sorts of different applications to engage NBC customers, to trying to ultimately drive higher engagement rates for fans across all of the NBC properties. So NBC Sports and CNBC and MSNBC. And it was kind of a skunk works group in that we were building these prototypes, testing them with fan bases, and seeing which ones had higher engagement rates. And so some of these were, synchronous web applications. Some of these were applications built into cable boxes, and then we had SMS, text to television, voting, polling on reality TV shows, competition, game shows, things like that. And the level of fan engagement on the SMS side was way higher than anything else we were doing, way higher than the synchronous web applications, because everyone had the ability to send a text message. And not everyone was sitting in front of their TV with their laptop open, but everyone had a mobile phone. Everyone could text. So the penetration of the technology, it's dead simple. There was no apps to download. You could learn how to do it in seconds. It sort of passed the mom test. And we were actually making money on some of this stuff because we were charging customers, $1 to vote on, deal or no deal, to enter to win money. And so that was the group at NBC Universal I worked on for a couple of years, and they were owned by GE at the time. It was a very kind of stuffy corporate environment, and I was young and I didn't like wearing a suit every day. I mean, this is not an everyday event for me, but it was not my jam, culturally speaking. I just didn't like working there. But I noticed that the vendor that we use at NBC Universal, who supplied a lot of our underlying SMS technology, our connectivity to all the carriers, the software platform that ran all these interactions, they were having fun. They were having much more fun than I was having at NBC Universal. So I ended up jumping over to a company called Single Point, and working on the business development team there at Single Point, running major accounts for other media companies, not just NBC Universal, but ABC, Disney, CBS, all their different properties, doing similar work just across more large media companies. And that's where I met this guy, Mr. Gowrie Shankar, at Single Point. God, what year was this, Gowrie? This was
2006, 7. Yeah, 8, somewhere there. Yeah.
Somewhere in that range. And Gowrie can go much deeper to the history of Single Point, aka Wireless Services Corp. But that was also my introduction into being a scrappier, smaller software company, trying to sell into these big clients and meet their service level requirements, and fix things that were constantly broken. And we were wearing a lot of hats. There were days I was the account executive, and there were days that I was on collections. And so, but you learn a lot about how to work, how to blast. And then we sold the company in 2012. Is that about right? Yep.
Yeah.
2012. And I had some friends back in Louisiana, which is where I was from, and we had, at the time, it was the beginning of Governor Bobby Jindal's second term in office. And I really watched Jindal from afar. I was from there, so I obviously kept up with local politics back home. But what the Jindal administration brought to the table was a super sophisticated administration and state government that the state of Louisiana had not seen for a long time. And these guys were all Ivy League educated, ex-McKinsey consultants, dead set on fixing, kind of systemic problems, and very aggressive on the economic development front. And so I joined that team in 2012, came back to Louisiana, and helped the broader mission of trying to create more technology jobs in Louisiana back in 2012. And so I've been in some version of that game since then. Here we are 12 years in on that mission.
So what is the mission of your agency and your specific role?
Yeah. So we are, our uncool name is the Department of Economic Development. So we're a state agency where we administer a lot of tax credits. That's a lot of what we do is, we create products and services that make it an easier place to do business. And so there's a lot of folks in the agency who are responsible for administering those programs. But the larger goal of the organization, it is to diversify the state's economy. We spend a lot of time, energy, and resources on attracting and growing industries that might not be native, or in some cases, helping some of those native industries pivot to new economies, right? Or to new transitional kind of periods or forks in the road or whatever that looks like. And, I can go into a long spiel about how we're doing that in the energy transition world right now, but either way, it's about creating more high paying, high value, kind of future proof jobs in our state.
Got it. And then what is your specific role as the Chief Innovation Officer?
So I have fully retired from business development. I am now no longer focused on attraction projects. We think we sort of divide our house a few different ways. The business development team focuses on attracting large employers here to expand into the region, or retaining kind of key driver companies, making sure that the people that are here are happy and growing and not jumping ship to Houston. And so my shop is actually new. This is the first time under this new administration where the state has said we need an office focused on innovation. And so as of July 1, I'm new to the role. It's a new office with a new strategy. Our North Star is startups. How do we help fill the top of the funnel with more high growth technology enabled startups in the state of Louisiana? So it's creating all of those systems, products and services to help people that can do that can create those startups, grow and thrive here in Louisiana. Some of those are on the policy side. Some of those are tax credits that help angel investors invest in companies that are growing in Louisiana. Sometimes it's about filling in gaps. So look, we might have really good technology accelerators focused on one geography or one industry, but maybe we're forgetting about trade, right? We're a big trade state, we're a big port state. But how do we unlock innovation in things like trade and maritime and third-party logistics and stuff like that? So that's really the role of our organization. It's to grow the overall pie and help fill in gaps where we're not doing well.
I see. Okay. And is there much startup activity today in the state of Louisiana?
Yeah, so there's a bunch, and it just depends. We're not a software hub, right? That's not one of our legacy industries. So when I think of like our startup activity, where we see the most activity would be in that energy space. So we're a large, not only energy extractor, but we're even bigger energy refiner. So we refine most of the country's oil products or downstream products that kind of come from oil and gas. Chemicals are huge in South Louisiana. And so a lot of our innovation currently is aligned with all things energy.
Right.
I think we've been very fortunate over the last few years coming out of COVID because the federal government is continuing to invest heavily in all things kind of energy transition. And we've landed a number of very sort of large, high-profile federal grant dollars or programs for some of the energy work we're doing because we make traditional industry here. We have the infrastructure for that, so it's sort of a no-brainer that we can kind of build on that legacy.
But in terms of tech startups, is there a significant VC and angel community to fund startups?
Yeah, so it's a great question. So if you actually look at our largest exits, they were software plays. We had our first $1 billion exit, 2021, a company called Lucid that built. It was like a network for buying and selling surveys that were taken online, and so they sold to a Swedish company called Cent for 1.1 billion. That previously, a few months prior to that, a company called Levelset here sold to Procore out of California. Construction tech, construction software that bought and sold liens, construction liens.
Right.
So we definitely have some pure play software in that world. I think the way we think about innovation, at least from our office, is high growth, scalable, technology enabled, right? So it doesn't have to be pure play technology, pure play software, anything, whether it is in our energy world or it's purely software or it's culture tech, right? I mean, we see a lot of music startups here because we have music's in our DNA. We record a lot of music here. I mean, Taylor Swift's last biggest single was recorded here in New Orleans a couple months ago. Her next album was all recorded here in New Orleans.
Nice.
So I think building on that legacy is also super important to us. On the VC side, we got a big shot in the arm from the federal government a couple years ago. There's a U.S. Treasury administers a program called SSBCI. So it's the State Small Business Credit Initiative. And each state got an allocation of dollars. And this was, again, it was a COVID, relief bill. I think it was under ARPA. And every state could sort of design a program for their allotment under this SSBCI Treasury initiative. In Louisiana, I think very smartly said, we're going to put most of our eggs into the venture capital basket. So we dedicated about $100 million in extra seed capital to our ecosystem that has to be matched with $1 of private capital. So effectively, it's an injection of $200 million in new seed capital that we're currently pushing through, which has been a tremendous boost.
Right, got it. So are you looking to states like Washington State, California, Texas to attract startups?
Yeah, it's a good question. So I think our competition is all over the place. I think Texas, because we share a border and because Houston is so large and is the de facto headquarters for most energy companies, that's an existential threat for us. So making sure that we're building, these new energy startups here in Louisiana, I think is our opportunity because we don't have the incumbent, players headquarters like Exxon and Shell and Chevron and all those guys. We have Gulf of Mexico operations for a lot of these companies, but this is not their headquarters. We think our opportunity is, because we have that infrastructure, because we have the workforce, is to continue to build future energy startups based on that, that legacy infrastructure, that legacy know-how, and that legacy workforce. So I'd say that Texas is absolutely, and Houston specifically, is our number one competitor. And then, California, obviously, for all things software innovation, is the world's number one competitor. And they set the gold standard globally, and competing with the Bay Area for software innovation is hard. But we have to make sure that the people that are here and that love being here and love living here have access to capital and customers and coaching. So I don't think it's hard to say that we're competing with, the Bay Area, but trying to emulate some of the things that they've done well is part of what we try. And so
what are some of the, as you talk to companies in California or Washington State or Texas, what are some of the incentives that you're offering startups to move to Louisiana or to have a portion of their staff located there, et cetera?
Yeah, one of the greatest programs we have is an interesting legacy, but it's still very much in play, is a is a software development incentive that we created back in the mid aughts. That it was originally a video game incentive. So if you follow these kind of competitive state tax credit programs, in the early aughts, the film programs took off, and you went from 0 states offering film production incentives to Hollywood to like 40 states doing it within about 2 years, with varying success and very unclear, kind of ROI on some of those programs. So a lot of states shut those off. Louisiana's was actually growing pretty well, and so around 2005, 2006. We created a sister program that was designed to attract video game developers here. But it was one of these programs that the legislators didn't realize that game companies don't look and act like film companies do. Film companies are mobile by design. They will pick up and shoot a film anywhere in the world if it's easy and there's dollars available. And game companies don't. These people are brick and mortar. They report to the same place every day, and their production cycle is years, not months. And so it's kind of just sat on the shelf for 5 or 6 years, and no one was really using this program. But it was a really powerful 25% rebate on your expenses for developing games. So we took that program, we opened it up, and we said any type of software. And we made that change right around 2010. And that program's been running strong for the last 14 years. In that we provide a 25% cash rebate to companies developing software. And it's uncapped. It's uncapped for that company. It's uncapped for the whole program. There's no sunset date. So it's an amazing program. It was modeled after what Quebec does. Montreal sees a lot of this activity as well. So closely modeled after that program. So that's the most valuable is that rebate. And it is every year you look at all of your software developers and you just tally up what you spent on all those developers, and the state owes you that 25% back in the form of a check. It's a fully refundable program that has nothing to do with your tax liability or anything like that.
That's amazing. So you can recover 25% of your development costs. I mean, that's not insignificant.
Oh, it's huge.
It's
a huge program.
They're definitely taking advantage of it.
So it's interesting. We have a couple of the larger, I would say, multinational IT service companies that leverage the program. IBM uses the program here. They've got about 1,100 people using that program. CGI uses the program quite actively. They do a lot of healthcare tech integration of products into various healthcare providers. They're big users of the program. DXC, which spun out of HP Enterprise Services, also big users of the program. And then you have some game companies as well. Electronic Arts still operates a large operation here and leverages this program as well.
Got it. Excellent. Over to you, Gabri.
Great. Josh, great to speak to you. There's one anecdote that came to my memory when you were talking about Nokia phones. Shirish actually had a company at that time called Timon that was building email to those devices, right? And eventually Timon was acquired by BlackBerry. So it's exactly what getting email to the phone was the big thing. And if you think of it, in the days, it was getting anybody to interact with the phone. BlackBerry was the only place where people sent and received email. Timon brought it to every phone, and Nokia was actually the big hit. And BlackBerry kind of saw the gap and acquired them. So it's one of those historical, because now everybody thinks, hey, if I want, just take an iPhone or Android device and there's email. The world has email. But it wasn't that long ago when that was still magic, so to speak.
I remember the first time I ever checked my Gmail on a Nokia phone. It was magic. It was easy and it was very slow, right? And there was no formatting. It was nothing, but it was a big deal.
It was real time. So before we sort of jump into AI and other things, right? So Louisiana State is in Baton Rouge, and it's a very large university. Compared to the size of your state, it's extremely large university. And how have you guys been able to, when I say you guys, I mean the government, the various administrations, you had variety of them. How have
Yep,
you worked with the Louisiana State to? I mean, it's a talent war. That's what
it is.
company. If I'm a company, I'm thinking, do you have talent? 25% is interesting, but if I can't attract talent, that alone won't get me there, right? So, how
Yep,
do you foster talent for the startups?
yep. Well, so you're 100% right. I mean, I think none of this works if we don't have butts in seats.
Yeah.
Like if we don't have people doing the work, it doesn't. You can create all the financial incentives you want. The universities are absolutely the number one driver of everything we're doing. And in most of the conversations with any sort of knowledge based, industry or company begins and ends with higher education, because they have to make sure that, I mean, they can relocate a bunch of folks to get things started, but it's, with churn, you have to begin to backfill with locals, or the economic models of doing this kind of stuff just doesn't make sense.
Hmm.
So our approach has been over the last few years. There's been a couple different things I think we've found pretty successful. One is we build very deliberate cooperative endeavor agreements with universities that have very measurable deliverables into or in partnership with the companies that are coming into the market. And so I use the IBM example, quite a bit because it's the most demonstrable. But so IBM initially said, look, we're going to create 800 jobs in the market, but we need the graduates coming out of LSU to understand X, Y, and Z. They need to have a baseline understanding of ERPs and big data and data analytics. I'm using this as an example, but not only do they need to have these baseline understandings of these three technologies that matter to us, your pipeline is here. We need it to be here. Like your graduates each year are good, but there's just not enough of them. And so we ended up taking dollars. We took $15 million in the example of the IBM project and working directly with LSU to build these cooperative endeavor agreements that said, do two things: increase the pipeline. Number one is just we got to get the throughput up. And number two is you need to listen to the IBM guys, because they're going to tell you what they need for you guys to produce so that they can hire your graduates. And that was it. It was come to the table, listen, align curriculum, and then grow the throughput. It wasn't rocket science, but it took a very deliberate mechanism. We call them cooperative endeavor agreements, but they're contracts. Instead of us just like endowing the university with more money, or us saying, oh, let's go appropriate more dollars to the computer science department or whatever next year. It's very surgical in the sense that it's saying, no, this specific program at this specific university needs to grow its throughput and align its curriculum, and here's the dollars based on that project to get that done. So that's been sort of our path over the last decade, and look, it's been great, because if you look at the growth in those pipelines, it's working. In some cases, there's 2 and 3x growth of graduates over the last 5 and 6 years.
Wow, that's unbelievable. So companies look for continuity and consistency. So you yourself have been in 3 administrations, right? So as a company coming in, the whims and fancies of the administration, whatever their agendas may be, what political affiliation they have, we still have a business to run for the whole globe. How does your office and your agency sort of mask and keep that consistent, so that I don't feel like, oh, it's a 4-year program, then I'm out?
Yeah.
It's not 4 years, it's forever program, so to speak.
Yeah. No, you're 100% right. I mean, I think we take the long view. So first off, you nailed it. I mean, jobs should be apolitical by design, right? If
Yeah.
we all want high paying jobs in our community. And I think by and large, at least my time under 3 very different administrations, that's been the case. I mean, I think new administrations don't typically come in and just tear up contracts just because they have the legal right to do it, because that consistency and predictability is critical. And rhetoric changes and all that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, we build 10 and 15, and in some cases even 20-year contracts with these companies so that they know that they have something they can take to the bank regardless of political whims and what's happening from the rhetoric perspective or the national scene influencing local states or whatever. Companies don't care at the end of the day, right? They just want to know that they can bank on the talent and the incentives, and it's going to look the same next year that it looked this year. So I think it's about having that power to to build some kind of an instrument. It's a 10, a 15, or a 20-year contract. Say we're here, we're going to do it, and we're going to support you. And guess what? If the legislature goes in and rips up some statutory incentive and makes a change, we're going to make you whole under this contract term. That's critical.
Got it. That's awesome. So let's switch gears a little bit, right? So you talked a lot about quote unquote legacy industries incorporating technology and your startups coming. So, and if you look at AI introduction, seems like the legacy industries are the most to take advantage of. Say, if you're chemicals, the fact that you could ask a bot what chemical composition is, which would be a completely new innovation, because otherwise some chemical engineer is looking up the molecules and telling you the answer. About ChatGPT can probably tell you. So given your legacy and the pace at which AI innovation is happening, what's your position on how to incorporate it, and what are you guys specifically doing around AI to attract that talent to support your legacy industry? It could be wood, it could be oil, it could be anything. They all need AI at the moment. That's somewhat obvious, and without it, somebody else will do it anyways.
Yep. Look, I mean, I'll say this about AI, and I'm on the record saying this all the time. This isn't Bitcoin or crypto or Dogecoin, right? This isn't something that's going to be heavily debatable whether there's utility or a future or a value or any of that stuff. This is the evolution of computing, right? We've been working on artificial intelligence since the beginning. I think generative AI just unlocked the public support and consciousness behind what has been a long time in the making, and accelerated the level of investment, the level of excitement and enthusiasm in AI. And I'm fully on board. And I think it's time to ride that wave, because big companies are spending a lot of money. VCs are spending a lot of money in artificial intelligence. But the utilities there today. I mean, the ability for AI to just make things quicker and easier and more productive for those legacy industries which you mentioned, it's there today. So it's only going to get better. I would love to see Louisiana be a living lab for applied AI research in those legacy industries. How are we leveraging it to test new energy applications, to saw timber, whatever that looks like. I mean, I think we're a fortunate state that we still make a lot of stuff here, and so that's a great place to test how artificial intelligence can help us make it cheaper and faster and better, and new novel approaches to all of that. So there's a very few things that we've done in the last couple months to position ourselves to compete in this new world of sort of AI investment. The first thing we did is we passed a bill in our spring legislative session that made us competitive for these large AI data centers. So we all know that infrastructure investment is being poured into these hyperscaler AI investment data centers. And to date, Louisiana just had no real play in data centers. We also strategically didn't chase them because from an economic development perspective, it's not historically, they're not big job creators. Where we have I think we have a mind share sort of challenge with storms, although storms really affect, the coastal part of the state. I think it was sort of an uphill battle to convince people that we're a safe location for data centers. But then generative AI came on the scene, and the size and scale of investment in some of those large hyperscalers is unprecedented. And the jobs that are related, I mean, some of these large projects are, 3, 4, 500 or more jobs in rural places in a lot of scenarios. So to where, those jobs are hugely impactful to the communities. So we passed a bill, the governor signed it into law, went into effect July 1st, that rebates large data centers their sales tax back on all of the equipment that goes into those large data centers, with the caveat that these are the big ones. These are the ones that are over $200 million in capex and over 50 jobs. So these aren't like your edge centers that are run by a telco, with one or two employees and 20, $30 million in investment. These are, these are the bigger ones. We were able to get that passed and signed into law, and we've had a ton of interest just since that thing became law on July 1st, by some of the big folks that are developing and deploying these big hyperscalers. So that was a long-winded answer, but I'm all in on AI to wrap.
So that kind of one of the interesting things is at the moment, infrastructure is attracting a lot of investment in the AI stack, so to speak. There's a lot of VCs putting money in application, but the infrastructure is without it, these applications will still take a long time to come. So if you build on top of that, meaning if you have enough jobs who come in at the infrastructure layer, in theory, you could build up the stack all the way to the application layer. You also have this energy advantage compared to some other states. I mean, you mine a lot of energy, you have a lot of access to energy, and you historically have had it, but you've not had the sort of confluence. And I think the least cost energy states are likely to actually attract initially the investments on infrastructure, because these things suck a lot of energy. And it is one of those. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, you nailed it. I mean, if I'm looking at some of these projects, some of the projects in our pipeline, Gowrie, they're like 3, 4, 5 gigawatts of projected. And it's, I mean, in some scenarios, these might be the largest industrial users in the state if we can land some of these.
Yeah.
It's unreal. But you're right. I think they have to go to places that are flat, that don't move a lot, and have the ability to supply gigawatts of power in a reasonable time frame without having to go, build brand new nuclear facilities and stuff like that.
Yeah. So it's either solar, hydro, or oil of some variation. Those are
natural gas.
Yeah, those are the, and you have access to lots of. I mean, it's off the coast and so on and so forth. So you guys have. With that said, are your programs now geared to saying, hey, we need, because the engineering talent needed for that is different than software engineers, and you still need to go back to that talent base. Are you guys gearing up all over again with the universities and attracting talent?
Yeah, we are. So, this is like forever been our challenge in economic development, is that it takes a lot of investment to do these things. And so if we want to build more capacity for, even GPU chip design that enables and unlocks, AI, we have to have someone on the employer side to say, I'm going to hire some of these people. I'm going to, we're going to do something with the dollars that you put in as a state agency to create jobs and wealth from that investment. And so it sometimes feels reactive, but what we try to do is, we'll use data centers as a good example here. So the data centers that we have that are in our project pipeline today, they're huge. But they're going to be, built and controlled by the companies. And the companies are smarter than we are. They're bigger than we are. They know how to train people and, find people and all that kind of stuff. But we use the inertia and the size and the economic impact of these projects to build related programs. So if we're able to land one of these large hyperscalers, the level of investment is so big, we can then find some dollars to say, let's build, a chip design facility at Louisiana Tech, for example, that can help us, design and fabricate, new types of GPUs. Or let's go build an applied research group within, LSU or University of Louisiana that can work with legacy industries to implement AI solutions within their supply chain or their manufacturing process or whatever. So we sort of use these big wins as an excuse to go invest in what's coming up next or what else we need there. If that makes sense.
So, are there startups that focus on supplying, say, a bot to a government agency? Are they, because you have this unique opportunity where you have this incentive, you're open and testing it. I don't know how many chief innovation officers are there across the 50 states, or you may be the only one. I mean, they have a lot of chief technology officers, but not innovation officers. How do companies in that vertical application find you and your agency in terms of, hey, how do I engage? Because these are all startups
Yep.
looking for good ideas. May have good ideas, may have a VC funding, but the hardest part, and Shirish and I talk to a lot of startups, is go to market. They have a huge go to market problem, and it seems like government may be the most attractive in terms of providing a citizenry better services because they can use AI. I mean, otherwise, hey, you can't show up to the DMV every day. I mean, there's DMV
Oh,
employ enough people, no matter how small
no,
it is.
it can, God, it can fix so much. I mean, look, I know that, I hope my friends from U.S. Treasury are not listening to this right now, but we just won a grant. We can't, I think we can't talk about it until mid-September, but we won a grant that was a 15-page application. It was a technical assistance grant. I mean, it wasn't anything super exciting from a scope perspective. It just helps provide some technical assistance to startups. It was $5.5 million. It was a competitive award program. It was a 15-page application. I wrote the entire thing with ChatGPT. I wouldn't have submitted it. I would a team of one right now. We're trying to grow this, but it wouldn't have gotten submitted had I not had AI. So I fully agree with you. I think that I think this is a revolution for every public education, government, services. So one of the things that we're trying to do right now, because we're a small agency when it comes to the scale of other agencies, we're not operational. We don't run hospitals and we don't build bridges and things like that. So we're about 150 people total in our agency. But our goal is to kind of lead by example on integrating AI, using it in our workflow, and talking about it to other agencies and talking about it with startups. And one of the things that we did this summer is, this is a little bit of a procurement hack, but we got a bill passed this year, again, went into law the same time the data center bill did on July 1st, where it exempted us from the central sort of Office of Technology Services for the state. So we no longer need to procure things through central IT, and it exempted us from procurement writ large. So the goal there, A, is just to move faster and so that we can be aligned with businesses, which are our customers. But B, it's also just to sort of set that bar, that the state government can actually work and function, and we can integrate some of these new tools into our environment so that we can better serve those customers, and then be a test bed to show other agencies it's not that hard to work with a startup to integrate some solution to your Byzantine process. So that's where we're going. The nice thing is the groundwork has been laid. Now we're just beginning to try to figure out how we roll it out and talk about it and implement it and all that good stuff. So I'm excited. I'm excited because I'm a user, because I'm inherently lazy individual, and it's made me look more productive, which is awesome.
So, sort of circle back to your roots, right? So, you're a Louisiana native, high school teacher after college. Then, you saw Katrina affect your state badly, and now comes AI. So, tie it back to how you, as a chief innovation officer, COVID being the other thing that happened badly, tie back to as your chief innovation officer of the state of Louisiana, how you would take AI into sort of the public education realm, because your state
Yeah.
uniquely was affected twice in every decade of this century. Katrina
Yeah.
in 2000, early 2000, and then
Yeah.
COVID in the late 2020, because public education was completely dismantled in both those events, so to speak. How
Yep.
do you see that integration happening as the chief innovation officer, especially given where you started your career in public education?
Yeah. Look, I think there's a thousand challenges that educators face today in public education systems, whether it's local school districts or statewide. I mean, the challenges are coming at them faster than they can solve them. Right. I mean, like it's super hard to recruit and retain teachers in the classroom. That's a huge challenge. Not only in dense urban environments, but in rural environments, even more so. Finding people that are qualified to actually teach our children is a big issue. And then the turnover rate is getting worse. It's not getting better. I'm a big believer that AI can unlock the potential to just deliver better education to students of all levels and meet them at their level, which is fascinating. I've been reading Sal Khan's new book, the not Brave New Words, I think is the name of it, right? And I don't know if you know this, but Sal Khan is from New Orleans.
I know.
He's from the Metro.
Yeah. He started his teaching his, I think, his cousins or nieces when he was in Louisiana.
Yep. Yeah, and so I've been a huge supporter of Khan Academy over the years, because the first wave of Khan Academy was just delivering access, right?
Yeah.
So that like you've got the ability to learn math and science in places that are having a hard time delivering those higher level math and science courses. But Conmigo is his new product, which is built on top of GPT-4 or 4.0 or whichever one we're on now. But its ability to really hone in on meeting individual students where they are is impressive. And you can't, public education doesn't work like that. You stick one teacher in a room with 20 to 40 students, right, whatever the number is, and they've got to kind of teach to the middle for the most part and try to bring students up. And it's hard. It's hard to do. And I think AI has the ability to change that and have these very personal, educational experiences at scale across all types of geographies, rural, urban, rich, poor, everything in between. So I'm a huge believer in the ability for AI to do that. I'm actually working on an interesting project right now. So during COVID, the federal government pumped a lot of money into broadband access for all 50 states. Said, look, we're going to be doing more of this. We just need to make sure that everyone is connected to high speed internet across the entire country. And so I was actually at a press conference today at the Capitol where we unveiled we call them gumbo grants for deployment of broadband to these rural communities. And so it's $1.4 billion program, most of which, or at least the vast majority, are the deployment dollars. So it's digging fiber, or putting, bringing solutions to where fiber doesn't make sense, like Starlink or, whatever that's going to look like. But it's impactful and it's great. But what's more interesting is what are we going to do with that internet and all those 40,000 new locations once it's deployed. And I think the education piece is the most interesting story there. I think the ability to deliver quality education to hard to reach places. We're a rural state. I mean, just like much of Washington, right? I mean, most of your population is along the coast, and you have this large portion in the middle that's rural. So Louisiana is very similar in the sense that we have a lot of underserved locations. And so what we're trying to do with the non-deployment dollars from this big federal grant program is design some programs that will allow us to figure out how to deploy generative AI products into rural classrooms to improve the level of education for those students. So I'm super excited about it. And the nice thing is, like, I just stepped into this role in July, and inherited this process kind of midstream. And it was early enough to shape it so that we could be part of some very interesting, case studies on how AI can affect rural classrooms. So I'm looking forward to that. You'll hear more about that in the coming months. I think December is when we'll begin to make announcements on what those projects look like. But I'm all in on AI in the classroom.
Excellent. Josh, we could keep talking more. Actually, what was striking is this could be one where you're the first government official on our podcast so far. We've had a lot of VCs and entrepreneurs and big companies. So the fact that this relationship startups have with the government is always, it's not easy because they don't know how to navigate it. The fact that you're saying, hey, listen, you come here, we'll make it easy and we'll give you 25% just because you're locating and help you navigate, I think is the first of its kind. It'd be super interesting for our audience to hear that. And also that you are sort of thinking ahead as to how to get AI into both the government and to your citizenry means that a lot of startups could use Louisiana as a program to launch their applications, and that's very interesting. So thank you for making the time to be on our podcast. And back to you, Shirish, to close it out.
Great. Thank you, Gauri. So fascinated to hear a little bit more about your plans to take AI into schools and universities. Are you doing anything specific with LLMs in particular?
Yeah, so it's a great question. We within our department have not yet, but my ultimate plan is to build an internal LLM for understanding and navigating just complex government programs. We've got a bunch of these programs that were built, designed, deployed over different decades at this point, right? And so some of them still exist. They're based on statute. They're based on these dense rule sets, and they're kind of a pain in the butt to navigate, even for the staff. I mean, we have a lot of people that spend a lot of time hunting down, statute, hunting down rules. So just program administration kind of stuff. Yeah. I think would be perfect to build, an LED LLM just to better manage all of these tax credit programs that we offer, whether they're state or or federal programs that we work with. So that's my goal is to build that LED version of that. I know the universities are all working on it. I mean, they've all within the last 6 months brought on faculty that are researching some version of open source, artificial intelligence. And I think we'll continue to kind of grow there. My goal would be to launch and just kind of be that leader in the space for government agencies where we've made it work for us. Let's now take that on the road within the Capitol and show the Department of Transportation how to do it, and health and hospitals and that sort of thing.
Right. Excellent. So thank you so much, Josh. This was very instructive to understand how you are deploying various proposals and policy options and incentives to attract startups to State of Louisiana. And would love to have you come by to the state of Washington, talk to startups here, and encourage them to also, have an office in your state. So
I would love to do it. I think we need to build it around a Seahawks home game. That's best stadiums in the NFL. So I would love it.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you guys for having me. I appreciate it. This was awesome.
Thank you.
I'll take care.
Yeah. Oh. Uh-oh. Did he cut off?
Oh, he dropped off.
Thank you for listening to our podcast from Startup to Exit, brought to you by TIE Seattle. Assisting in production today are Isha Jain and Mini Verma. Please subscribe to our podcast and rate our podcast wherever you listen to them. Hope you enjoyed it.